Hi everyone, my name is Alec Davis, founder of MediateAcademy.com, home of the passionate mediator. You know what we do on here? We interview the very best mediators and thought leaders from right around the world. We find out how they've become successful, how they approach particular aspects of their mediation practice, and handle all sorts of challenges and dilemmas. It's also a chance for us to learn about new challenges and opportunities in our field. Alright, big question for today's interview is this. How do we make it easy for parties to access justice and engage in mediation regardless of location and circumstance? Well, my guest today is a true pioneer in this field and is tireless in his pursuit of developing and enhancing user-friendly interfaces for the justice system. Now, for the past 8 years, he's been utilising technology to build better user interfaces for the justice system. He combines expertise from dispute systems design, access to justice, UX, UI design, and online dispute resolution. He helps courts and other justice sector organisations to update and innovate their procedures and justice processes. He's initiated, designed, and implemented several IT-based justice applications in both the developing and developed world. He was involved in the development of the Micro Justice Research and Innovation Program that focused on designing effective justice processes and business models that serve the poor. He's an experienced facilitator of workshops and focus groups with policymakers, legal professionals, as well as with end users. In law school, he modernised the largest Dutch law review, including its circulation and business model, and he's been instrumental in the development of Regmater 2.0, an online application that supports people throughout their justice journey. It's a real pleasure and a privilege to welcome Jin Ho Interview, I hope I've got that right, onto Mediate Academy. Jin Ho, welcome.
Thank you.
Jin Ho, a justice technology architect. What is a justice technology architect?
It's a good question, and I catch that a lot. And I think part of it is because we made up the term myself, basically. But it's the position is meant to express the fact that there's a lot of opportunities for modern information technology to update our justice processes and service delivery, but we see that there's very little communication going on between IT developers on the one hand, legal professionals on the other hand, and thirdly, maybe most importantly, the users of justice as well. So what a justice technology architect aims to do is to interface between these three groups and make sure that the justice needs of the users are picked up correctly by IT professionals and legal professionals, and that they communicate with each other in order to produce innovative justice technology.
Okay. So I understand that the terminology around a user interface, but it sounds like it's a bit more than developing a user interface. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the work that I do as a justice technology architect is very much starting from the justice needs, designing the process flow, integrating modern information technology, and I always find it important to emphasize that this should go beyond simply PDFing existing stuff that we have, but really fully use the potential that information technology offers. But then, in the end, still creating a very user-friendly interface for these IT-based processes, or maybe even a very user-friendly interface for the justice system is also a key element still.
Okay, all right. And you've developed your own platform, right?
Yes. It's called the Regmater 2.0 platform, and it's basically, you could call it an end-to-end dispute resolution platform, which specifically focuses on supporting and empowering people who experience relational disputes. So it could be a divorce issue, landlord-tenant issue, or employment issue, and I call it relational disputes, to distinguish it from transactional disputes.
Right.
Which are the small claims, low value, high volume type of disputes, generally involving less emotional dimension to it. And it's also typically less interest-based or need for interest-based dispute resolution, probably. But this Rechtwijzer 2.0 platform, we developed this at Hill, and for us, the development started basically on a journey that was led by a colleague of mine, Corrie van Zeeland, who started developing the Rechtwijzer 1.0 platform as of 2006, together with our main partner, the Dutch Legal Aid Board. And what did this Rechtwijzer 1.0 platform do? Provided an interactive web-based platform to people where people could diagnose their legal problems, so they could understand what exactly the nature of the problem that they experience was from a more legal perspective, and also would provide triage. So it would provide people the different options that they would have to take action towards resolution. This could be referring them to mediators, also explaining what the pros and cons of mediation was, what they could expect from a mediation process, or lawyers or notary public. That type of triage was part of it. What we also did in the Rechtwijzer 1.0 platform was, we had some diagnostic tests
Right.
to measure the level of self-efficacy of people, so we could give them a recommendation based on that, whether taking action themselves would seem an appropriate action for them, or whether it might be a good idea for them to hire a professional from the very beginning. And lastly, it also provided some self-help tools like template letters that they could use to send to the other party, or document checklists that they could use to prepare themselves, or communication tips and tricks that they could use to communicate with the other party. That's where it started. We launched that in 2006, and we saw several things happen at a certain stage. We saw a couple of years ago that the Rechtwijzer 1.0 platform was catching some international attention, and that some scholars, access to justice experts, mentioned the Rechtwijzer platform as the state of the art in legal information provision. It's very nice to hear.
Indeed.
But of course, very encouraging as well, very rewarding, especially for the team that, under the guidance of Corrie van Zeeland, developed it. But next to that, we also saw the emergence of ODR, online dispute resolution, and we saw also more broadly expansion of digitized legal services provision, living in a world where the majority spends more time on the internet than watching television by now. People are increasingly used to using services by professionals online. We see the emergence of some major companies, especially in the US, making good profits. Make the case that this actually meets a need of users. So, based on the good reviews that we got, the emergence of ODR and also the trend of digitization, we took a next step. Maybe some call it a bold next step, but basically this was the next step towards the Rechtwijzer 2.0 platform that we started slightly over a year ago to develop. And I think it's about a month now that we have accepted the first cases in a more experimental phase.
And so Rechtwijzer 1.0, what sort of relational disputes were people using it for predominantly?
We provided information for people who wanted to divorce. We provided information for people who experienced a labor relation related problem. for consumer issues, for small administrative issues, typically involving permits, things like that, and also for landlord-tenant issues.
Okay. And internationally or specific to an area?
No, I think the Regtijzer 1.0 platform has always been focused on the Netherlands.
Yeah.
I think during the past year, following the developments with Regtijzer 2.0 platform and the exposure that Regtijzer got, we see an increasing willingness to adopt Regtijzer 1.0, 2.0 type of technology and processes also internationally.
Yeah.
It's recently that we started to cooperate with the Legal Services Society in British Columbia and Canada. And together with them, we are now working on Regtijzer 2.0 implementation that they have named Myobc. And this will provide the diagnosis triage elements for foreclosure issues, for life planning, wills and estates, and also for divorce and separation. And it will also have many of the elements of the Regtijzer 2.0 platform for divorce and separation as well.
Okay, so the principal difference between the earlier platform and this new platform, the earlier one sounded a more like it would almost coach me through a particular dilemma or a trouble that I was having, but through that triage service and giving me information and options as I went through it. But the 2.0, does it enable people to engage with each other through the platform to resolve the issue? Is that the difference?
Absolutely. Okay. I think you've spotted that well. What the Regtijzer 1.0 platform did, it provided you as an endpoint, typically a telephone number and a physical address in the real world with a front door and a doorbell that you could ring, basically refer you to that address for the next help. And we decided that given these trends that I just described, rather than referring people off the platform, we thought that we could organize similar support on the same platform. So we're not sending people out in the real world, but we're keeping them on the application. We have created a very problem-solving interface that supports people in several different ways to have an effective dialogue and negotiation. And if they get stuck or they feel it doesn't work anymore, we organize mediation interventions on the platform. We organize adjudication interventions on the platform. We have a lot of self-help tools and applications on the platform as well. Also work a lot with model solutions that people in the Netherlands for divorce issues typically opt for in a separation agreement, to provide some building blocks for effective agreements in the separation plan. So basically, it's very popularly stated. You could call it a one-stop shop, but that's not doing it justice. But it's reflecting appropriately that we're not sending people away, but we're pulling all types of help that they might need to the place where they already are, following communication channels that they already are used to, while using Facebook, tweeting, booking their flights, or buying a new television online. And we also allow them on the platform to communicate in their own words, describe the problem in their own words, build solutions from their own interests. So rather than creating this code, this legal code that only the experts understand, on top of that we've put a user-friendly interface using plain language that everyone understands, so people feel empowered to work on their own dispute that they know as no one else knows it.
Yeah. And you talked about sort of a mediated feature. Are these sort of human interventions, or are they algorithmic interventions?
they are human interventions.
Okay.
Let me briefly tell you what the different stages or phases rather of the Rechtwijzer application are. So what the Rechtwijzer 2.0 does, it focuses on separation and divorce firstly. We still provide a similar diagnosis element as we had on Rechtwijzer 1.0. If people decide they want to get a divorce and they want to use Rechtwijzer for that, we help them through a very problem-solving, interest-based intake, which lets them reflect on the different interests that are involved from their end, but also from the partners' end, from the children's end. We let them reflect on their initial ideas for solutions and agreements that they would like to make. And in this way, we provide them the type of structure that keeps them away from really a rights-based attitude. After this intake has been completed by both of them, they end up in what we call the dialogue phase. This is really an interface where they can work together, talk together, build agreements together with the self-help tools, with the model solutions, with the strong focus on the interests. But yeah, if they get stuck, and we imagine many people will get stuck for at least some of the issues, they can call in the mediation assistance. So with a click on the button, we provide them unbundled mediation services if you want. So it's really mediators who will focus on specific issues, the specific issues that parties indicated they want their support for. They will work for a fixed fee, so people will have to pay for the mediation intervention, but they won't pay 150 euros for an hour of mediation. No, they will pay a sum of money that will give them the mediation that they need, as long as it's fruitful. And in this way, we feel that many more people will be able to settle many more issues, but maybe not all still. So we have a similar intervention, which we call adjudication, and it's basically a family law expert who acts as a neutral and takes a neutral decision, which is experienced as very binding for the parties. Again, this is a fixed fee. People will pay for this when they call upon it. So it's also pay as you go as a model. And it's also unbundled again. So they will provide decisions only for the issues that parties ask the decision for. And we feel that with the dialogue interface and with the mediation intervention and the adjudication intervention, many people will be able to come to a full-fledged separation plan. We also see that in disputes like these, there might be power differences, or people might be misinformed, or there might be any other form of information asymmetry. So what we have decided as a compulsory step is once there is a full separation plan, a neutral reviewer, family law expert again, will review the whole separation plan and assess whether there's no outcomes that seem the result of power imbalances or coercion or whatever, or people just making emotional decisions. So they will look for the equity, the legitimacy, the balancedness overall, to provide this extra check and to protect people from mistakes that they might make, not want to make in the end. So that's extra quality assurance towards our users.
Yeah.
And I strongly feel that the Rechtwijzer 2.0 platform, it's not an automated algorithm-based super machine. It's simply it's an application that empowers people, and 50% of the empowerment probably comes from technology, and 50% of the empowerment probably comes from the service providers that we work with. And in that way, we're also not seeing ourselves as threatening the legal profession. Essentially, what we do is we create a new channel for service delivery for the same legal professionals.
Yeah. You've really thought about this, haven't you?
I've been thinking about this for almost 1.5 years now, yes.
Wow. I mean, it sounds an amazing resource. It really does.
Yeah, I think we've received several very positive responses to it. I think we generally feel very confident that this will work. The reason for this might be that from day one, when we started designing this application, we have involved mediators, lawyers, judges, and also end users. So they have been at the table from day one. They have been very much part of the design process. Before we launched the first beta version, we already had 10 rounds of user testing and integration processing of the results. And as I told you, we have now very softly launched the platform, so we are accepting cases in a controlled manner. And for me, this really feels like the stage where we finally are able to really find out how we can tweak the application in such a way that it really works for its users. So the continuous user testing, and with users I mean parties filing for divorce, but also the mediators, and the adjudicators, and the reviewers. But through this continuous user testing, we will gradually learn how to really optimize the Rechtwijzer 2.0 platform. And the model that we've chosen for is we have been looking to the successful interactive web-based platforms. And then you talk about Twitter, Facebook, Google, and there's one thing very essential to what they do. They don't launch a website and say it's done, but they continuously update and upgrade it. So core to the Rechtwijzer 2.0 platform is that we every 3 months come with a very substantial update where we process everything we've learned thus far from our users or from tech developments that we see happening in the world. So to keep it constantly up to date. So in that way, I always see of this type of justice innovation that we do is not as much about a typical IT project that I always compare with a game of bowling, where you have this really heavy ball and you throw it on a very long trajectory. It's very heavy and it's slowly moving, and you will only find out in the end whether you hit a strike or whether you hit the gutter. But I think this type of innovation should be much more similar to a game of ping pong or whiff-waff or table tennis, where you very quickly hit a light ball back and forth with the user, learn from them, prove very iterative. And I think that's essential to justice innovation, and I think that's a key feature of the Rechtwijzer 2.0 platform.
Okay. Wow. And so the soft launch, where are your users coming from? Are they being diverted to your website? Are they searching online? How do they engage with you? How do you get them into your?
I think this part of bringing in the users of the platform has been very much work done by the Dutch Legal Aid Board, our key partner. So they have the channels that they use to bring in these first users, and among them are the legal services counters that we have in the Netherlands. These are basically government-funded legal information offices that are present in many of the big cities, in the city centers. So they refer people to the Rechtwijzer 2.0 platform. But next to that, and I think more importantly, we still have the Rechtwijzer 1.0 platform online. At this stage, we have something about, I think, 20,000 unique visitors per month. And we've also
That's
put up
incredible, isn't it? 20,000 uniques a month.
Yeah, so it's covering the 5 issues. It's quite a lot, I think. There's a university doing independent customer satisfaction research now among its users. It's a longitudinal study, but the first results are in, and I was very happy to hear that we almost got an 8 as a satisfaction rate, 8 out of 10, which I was left to believe that it's pretty high for a website. So there's a lot of users. The launch, the availability of Regmater 2.0 application is mentioned there, and we have a customer contact center that they can call with a request to provide them the link to start using the Regmater 2.0 application.
Okay, all right, yeah. So, I mean, I suppose if you were to make it available, you could have 20,000 users in a month, which would be fantastic. But then
it would be fantastic, because then we would really learn from a large number of people how we can improve it. We could also help more people access better justice and feel more empowered, probably empowering them to take the responsibility that they can handle. So that would be really exciting. I think at this stage we see the current phase that we're in as the more experimental phase, where we acknowledge that this is the first design that we put to practice, and we feel that we want to put it into practice in a more controlled manner until we have the experience of dozens of cases, and we feel confident enough to bring in the big groups, because the system has proven itself sufficiently. Because it's quite a thing, of course. We don't want to use people as guinea pigs during their divorce, obviously. So that's also the reason why we have created a special, what we call cockpit. So these first users get very extensive support right now. And we will do everything that's needed to give them a good divorce. There's telephone availability. Well, honestly, my mobile number is connected to the telephone number, the hotline published on the application, and I can be called day and night by the users if they need something. Of course, we also have a real help desk center, but in the evening hours we feel it's important to also provide support, so this is the way we do it. And once we feel that from the real data the system is stable, we have search engine optimization ready, so we can reach out to the larger volume of people.
Yeah, okay. I mean, the iterative process and the way you learn and develop this platform based on the user experience, it's something that I think the mediation traditional experience of mediation, I think one of the things I don't think we're good at as a profession or a field. We're not a profession, we're a group of disparate people wanting to help, is I think we've made some big assumptions about what's good for people in a mediation without really seeing what works for them. We make assumptions about if I think about the facilitative mediation model that I was trained in, we make assumptions about keeping people together, separating them, who should talk first and who. And I'm not quite sure how much we're interested in learning about how we can improve the mediation process. But that's what I'm really interested in. How you learn. Is it through feedback from users? Do you have a way of watching how people interact with your interface? How do you learn continuously?
There's several ways. I think one of them is simply analyzing the usage data. So working with a tech-based application allows us to automatically collect a lot of data. How long do people spend in the dialogue phase? After how many weeks or months do they request mediation? What are the chances of success if people agree to 50% of the issues themselves? You name it. So that's one way where we can learn. And of course, we have to be very careful not to violate any privacy regulation there. But we build it in such a way that we can use some data without doing that. Another thing is we sent web-based surveys to the users when they transition to the next phase, from the intake to the dialogue to the mediation, etc., etc. So we can really learn per phase what their experiences are, collecting some quantitative data as well. But we also organize focus groups with real users, where we typically put 6 of our users together in a room, and we really let them reflect on the challenges that they've experienced, and maybe they have some ideas of how we can improve it. And we will do the same thing with the mediators and the other service providers as well. So that's really it's some kind of triangulation and data collection from several different sources where we see we can learn from.
And I think one of the challenges with mediation now, as you're talking, is that because of the feature of confidentiality in mediation, it's hard to for us as a field to capture that data. And that's a real tension and a real dilemma actually that we've got.
Absolutely. I see that. It's really what we have done on the Regmater 2.0 application is, to put it simply, we have merged several different processes into one another. So we started looking at the actual behavior of people when they experience a dispute, and we see that across disputes, across jurisdictions, this is pretty similar, and we know this because of the paths to justice type of research that has been championed by some of your fellow Brits, like Hazel Gann, Pascal Pleasance, people like them who did a lot of quantitative studies to how people actually behave when they have a legal problem. And we know that, I would say safely, all over the world, people will generally first look for information about whether the problem that they have actually is a problem that they can take action on. They will typically start talking with neighbors, with friends, with relatives, browsing the internet, and gather a lot of information. If they have information and they feel, yes, this is a legal problem, they will typically contact the other person and try to have a conversation about this, a dialogue. And if this does not work, they will escalate towards calling in the assistance of a third party, maybe. And only 5 to 10% of these people end up in court eventually. So this gradual escalation, these different phases are basically the phases that we have in the Regwijzer. So from the dialogue to the mediation to the adjudication, but we've merged them into one process because for users it's all about their problem, and they don't think in terms of these fixed processes that people like you and me think about, and thinking about all the different rules per different process and how very important that is. They don't see it like that. They just see their problem and they shop a bit around, finding ways that are effective. And one of the things that I see, mediation, I think, is a beautiful product, and still it never really got the market share that the quality and the beauty of the product implies it would get. One of the reasons for that is what we call the submission problem. I think your fellow Brit, Dame Hazel Gann, called it once that mediation is the sound of one hand clapping, expressing that what mediation requires is that when people already are in a dispute, you want them to agree to choose mediation and to choose this specific mediator. Now, in that context, it's very difficult to agree upon such an issue. So, if you're in a dialogue and negotiation with each other and you find out it doesn't work, it's difficult to agree that you'll go to a mediator. Not everyone can do that. So what we did with the Rechtwijzer is really from the very beginning, we took away the blocking power of one party. So if people opt in on Rechtwijzer from the very beginning, they express that they will cooperate with mediation, with the adjudication, if that would be needed later on in the process. But at the very beginning, we want them to opt in to these options. So what this does is we take away the power of either one of the parties to block it, to say, no, we're not going to mediation now at this stage where we cannot have a decent dialogue or effective dialogue together anymore. So that's one attempt that we do to solve this submission problem, and we do that by merging these processes into one process that's very gradual.
Yeah.
Then you will encounter indeed the considerations of privacy in mediation processes, but that's innovation, trying these new things to see if these work better for the users in the end.
Yes. So where do you see this going? What's the potential for Rechtwijzer in the future? And what are your hopes, aspirations and plans for it?
I have dreams. I see that because the application is designed following the behavior of people and not following legal rules, and building from the assumption that the behavior of people is universally stable, more or less, the application is scalable. So we have designed it now for divorce in the Netherlands. We are preparing a Rechtwijzer 2.0 platform for landlord-tenant issues in the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. And we see that it's the same phasing that happens in these disputes as that happens in divorce. Of course, the issues are different. The information that you have to provide is different. But the general flow of the process is the same. So we can use the technology, we can adapt the content, and then basically we reach quite some economies of scale by scaling it up to a next issue. Yeah. Now, I mentioned that we also scale up internationally, because we see that behavior and the needs of people who want to get a divorce in British Columbia are very similar to the needs and behavior of people who want to get a divorce in the Netherlands. So again, we can reuse the technology and the general process flow. We will add different content because that's where the legal specificities are reflected in the text, but text is typically something that you can change rather easily in an application. So in this way, we can reuse or we can implement the Rechtwijzer also in British Columbia. I think we could do it in England. I think we could do it in Singapore, in Finland, in many other countries, probably. So that's where I think this application can go. Now, there's another side to this, because what this does is this allows organizations or government agencies working for access to justice to really cooperate on an international scale. And we always have thought that the national laws, the differences there prevented real cooperation. But I think with applications like these, we can work towards international standards for procedures, because the procedure now might not be as much about a book with rules of civil procedure, but maybe it's more something of an application. And that's basically what the procedure can be with applications like these. So there's huge economies of scale, there's huge opportunities to develop best practices or evidence-based elements for the application. And I also see that what we do with the Rechtwijzer 2.0 platform is, if there is an implementation of the platform abroad, we will always continue to user test it, and we might learn lessons in British Columbia that will result in improvements and new features that will also work for the Netherlands. So it's really possible to combine forces, not only when it comes to providing an effective dispute resolution platform, but also to maintain it and to continuously improve it.
So when I asked you what the plans are for the future, and you said you've got dreams, and I mean, you know, I get a real sense of, you know, the potential that certainly you see in Regmater, not just from a scalable perspective, but just making it easy for people to, as you said, sort of get access to some justice. You know, breaking down the barriers for people to be able to access that. And it triggered a thought, actually. I read in your profile around something you said about some research, microjustice research and innovation program. Could you say a little bit more about that? Because I got the impression that had something to do with, you know, making it easy for all people of all walks of life to access justice.
Sure. No, I used to work at a university, and there I co-developed this microjustice research innovation program. And basically what it did was to focus on access to justice solutions, financially sustainable access to justice solutions for people living in developing countries.
Okay.
And that's, of course, if you want to find an access to justice challenge, you have to go to Kenya, where there's a population of 40 million people and only 5,000 lawyers in the entire country, and they all are concentrated in the business district in Nairobi. Yeah. That's a challenging environment. It might be even more challenging than the environment in London or in The Hague. We also worked on applications there, and that's basically, I think it must be 7-8 years ago, where I started seeing the potential of integrating IT in justice processes to increase access to justice. So I've worked on a thing called M-Sharia. M stands for mobile, Sharia is Kiswahili for law. I worked on M-Sharia in Kenya, still do. And it's basically an SMS-based version of the Rechtwijzer 2.0 platform. That's how you could call it. So it's really, it's back to the basics if you work in an environment like that. But I see going back to the basics also is going back to the essentials, and going back to the essentials really enables you to learn a lot about the foundations that applications like the Rechtwijzer 2.0 should have. So that's, I think, how this prior experience with the microjustice program really also feeds into the current Rechtwijzer 2.0 activities.
Yeah. Where's your passion and interest for this come from?
I see so many potential. When you look back, I sometimes make the comparison looking back, way back. So throughout the history, the recorded history of law, I see that the justice providers always used state-of-the-art technology. So I don't know whether you heard of the Codex Hammurabi, which is the first written law that we know. It was chiseled in a piece of rock, and that was how information was captured by them. If you look at the Romans, they used pergamentus and ink. That was state-of-the-art information technology by them. We got Napoleon in our civil law countries, and he used the art of printing books. That was the state-of-the-art technology then. And what it did was enabling dissemination of legal information on a much larger scale. So that was not simply using a different means, that was really innovating what they were doing. And when I look what we are doing right now is putting information in books and CD-ROMs on simple static websites. And I'm wondering, are we still using to the full potential the state-of-the-art information technology that we have available right now? I don't think so. And I think we should really reconsider, redesign our justice processes, information provision, dispute resolution support, and really look at what people already are doing with it and see how we can integrate that in our justice processes. And I see there's huge opportunities, not only for users, but I also see the opportunity for lawyers to finally get rid of all the administrative stuff that they have to do and that they never went to law school for. No one wants to do boring intakes, collecting factual stuff. You want to go to the real lawyering, the real nitty-gritty of the law, because that's what you were educated for, that's what you're passionate about. You don't want to do that administrative stuff. So I see that these types of applications allow automation of these administrative things and help the lawyers to get back to their lawyering again, to focus on that. And we create efficiencies on the way. And the efficiencies, the lawyers, the mediators can benefit from that, and the users can benefit from that as well. So I think there's huge potential for that. And if I see that potential, I see that there's not as much development towards using it as you would wish for. And that's where my passion comes in. And I see if no one's doing that, then I should do it probably, and we should do it here at Hill.
Boy, and you are doing it. It's fantastic. Really, really wonderful.
Yeah, we are taking bold first steps, and we are confident. I'm not sure whether we are yet there, but I'm pretty confident that we can get there if we show some stamina and keep on working on it.
Yeah, and I think this process of continuously learning and making data-driven decisions about how you optimize your platform to make the process of engaging with it just really, really easy. And that's what, when you talk about the Twitters and the Facebooks, and they just make it so easy to engage with their system.
Yeah, no, I think it's using the channels and the technologies that people are used to already.
Yeah.
So it might be the lawyers might be less tech savvy than many of the users, but everyone can learn it, and there's new generations coming.
Yeah. Jin Ho, this has been really inspiring. I've been really inspired by you today. I'm just excited. Fantastic.
It's very kind of you to say. Thank you.
Well, I really admire people that they have a vision, a dream, a passion, and they are sort of pursuing it with I don't know, just with urgency. I get the impression that you want this isn't moving quick enough for you. But also, I really admire people that take bold steps, be innovative, are wanting to push the envelope, and not satisfied with just average or it works. Why it's not broken? Why do we need? I think that's wonderful what you're doing, and I really, really appreciate you giving your time for the interview today. If people want to find out a bit more about Rectifizer 2.0 and you, how can they reach out to you? Where's the best place to go looking online?
I think our website, hill.org, HIIL.org, might be a good starting point. We have a section on justice technology with a good description of the Rectifizer 2.0 platform as well.
Okay.
People could find my email address there, or they could look me up on Twitter. It's Jinhov, Jinhov, or simply Google my name or Rectifizer, and they will find it.
Okay, I'll put all those links underneath the interview. Well, look, I want to say a big thank you, Jin Ho. Thank you so much, and I'm going to be keeping a keen eye on Rechtwijzer 2.0, and maybe 3.0.
Thank you very much, Alet. It has been a great pleasure talking with you about one of the things that I love talking about and love doing. So it has been my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jin Ho.